how much money do Amazon sellers make, how much of that is actually profit, and how many hours per week on average do Amazon sellers spend working on their businesses? Now, these are just three questions that I'm sure many of you that are new to the Amazon FBA world will be wondering. And guess what? Recently, Jungle Scout did a survey to 5,000 Amazon FBA sellers asking these questions and more. So in this video, I'm going to be going through the results of that survey, focusing on the most important questions that were asked and giving my thoughts on the answers to those questions. So without further ado, let's get straight into the survey. So here is the output of the survey that was recently conducted by Jungle Scout. It is a fairly lengthy document, so I'll put a link for it in the description box below, but I thought this video would be a great opportunity to basically just summarize the key messages and the key take-home points of this survey. So as I just mentioned earlier in the video, Jungle Scout basically surveyed nearly 5,000 Amazon sellers in order to get the results of this survey. So I think it is fairly representative of all the Amazon sellers out there across the world. So before we actually go into the results of the survey itself, I thought this page was really interesting. It's basically Amazon by the numbers, and you can see just how humongous Amazon really is. On a daily basis, it gets 100 million views. That's every single day, which equates to 3 billion visits per month, which is crazy. Now, I thought this statistic here was also very interesting. Third-party Amazon sales account for 54% of Amazon's revenue. So that basically means sellers like you or I, anybody doing Amazon FBA, anybody that isn't Amazon themselves, they are counted as a third-party seller. So more than half of Amazon's sales come from people like you or I. And then of course I couldn't mention this figure here either. That's 386 billion revenue Amazon made in the last year, which is absolutely ridiculous. Did you know that on average Amazon's revenue has grown 40% every single year since it was first created, which I think is unprecedented. It's absolutely crazy, the amount of growth. So I thought that this snapshot was a really good way of basically just describing how big Amazon really is. But let's now go into the actual heart of the survey. So as I mentioned earlier, there are actually a ton of questions in this survey. If you want to go into the detail, you can download this report, but I will just be focusing on the points that I think you guys want to know the most. So one of the first questions in the survey asked was, what type of business model are you operating? Is it private label, wholesale, retail arbitrage, etc.? And the most popular response at 67% was private label, which is exactly what I do and what I teach. Now, if you're new to the channel, if you're new to Amazon FBA and you don't know what that is, essentially in a nutshell, it's where you purchase goods that don't have any branding on and you get the manufacturer to put your own brand and logo on. In a nutshell, that's what it is. So private label is the most popular type, and then after that at 26% was wholesale, i.e. people are buying goods in bulk that already have branding on and then just selling them through Amazon. So I thought that was quite interesting. The next question that I thought you guys might want to know is, how are you fulfilling your goods? Are you doing fulfillment by Amazon, or are you fulfilling them yourself? Now, the results of this question were actually quite interesting. So in total, 92% of people that were surveyed said they used fulfillment by Amazon, and 43% said they used fulfillment by merchants. So you can see there's a bit of crossover there. So of those respondents, 57% only did Amazon FBA. They didn't do fulfillment by merchant, and only 9% just did fulfillment by merchant, i.e. they didn't use fulfillment by Amazon at all. So you can see that Amazon FBA is definitely the most popular option. But I thought this paragraph here was really interesting, that basically said because of COVID in 2020, a lot more people started to use the fulfillment by merchant option, which could become permanent possibly in 2021 and onwards as more of these third-party logistics providers become available and start to reduce their prices as a result of them becoming more efficient at fulfilling goods. who knows? The next set of questions that I thought were really interesting are to do with the number of products that Amazon sellers sell and the types of prices that they charge. So here are the results to the question, how many products do you sell and what kind of price do you charge? And you can see here on the left, we've got number of products per seller. And what I thought was really interesting is you kind of got 11% of people asked only had one product, and then it kind of drops off. So number of products being 2 is 9%, sellers with 3 products is 8%, and it keeps dropping off until you get back to 6 to 10, and then 11 to 20, and 21 to 50. It kind of builds up and up and up. And I guess that's down to the fact that maybe some people get quite comfortable just selling 1 or 2 products. So a lot of people sit in that bucket, and then you've got the rest of people that are kind of like, well, I'm selling 2 products, I might as well start to expand the range more and more. And that is exactly what I've done. I currently have 9 products for sale, and I'm very focused on expanding that more and more. So maybe that's the result for the interesting difference here. Now, in terms of price point, you can see that the most common price point is $16 to $20, which I think actually does sound like fairly sensible and is in line with what I thought had I not seen these results. If you're kind of charging less than that, so if you're charging less than £12, then any profit that you're going to be making, you need to think, is it actually going to be worthwhile? Even if you're making a 30 or 40% profit margin, the amount of money on an absolute level isn't going to be that great. So you need to be shifting a huge amount of units for selling at that price point to be worthwhile. So those are the results there. Pause the video and take a look if you want to have a look in more detail. But I thought that was actually quite interesting. Okay, so now we're getting into the juicy bit of the survey, and this question here is probably the one that you guys have been wondering the most, and that is, how much on average do Amazon sellers make on a monthly basis? And at the moment, we're just talking about revenue. So you can see the results here show that half of Amazon sellers are making more than $5,000 per month or $60,000 per year, and 1 in 4, so a quarter, are making more than $25,000 per month, which is way higher than I expected. And the good news is, from this survey, you can see that 71% of sellers are making at least $1,000 per month, which is great. So 70% of people selling on Amazon are seeing success in the sense that they're selling their products. As a follow-up question, Jungle Scout asked, how much have you made in the entire time that you have been selling with Amazon? And you can see the results here again are really impressive. More than half of sellers have reached lifetime sales of more than $50,000, and 1 in 5, 20%, have made more than $1 million in lifetime sales, which is even more impressive when you think about the actual age of Amazon FBA and selling on Amazon. Like, relatively speaking, it is very young compared to many other businesses out there on the internet. So I think that is even more impressive and should get you guys even more excited about the potential of selling with Amazon. The next set of questions are to do with profits, and of course this is going to be a main area of focus for you guys, so I absolutely wanted to include the responses of these 2 questions. So the first one was to do with profit margins. So on average, what profit margins do Amazon sellers work with? And you can see the responses are here. So I actually thought the answers were really interesting here, actually. You can see that one of the most common margins to have is between 26 and 50%. So 19% of people that did this survey have a profit margin of between 26 and 50%, which is a lot higher than I thought, and it does show that there are a ton of products out there that have really attractive profit margins. So one of the key take-home points of this chart here is that more than 2/3 of sellers have a profit margin of higher than 10%, and 1/3 have a profit margin of higher than 20%, which, if you put it in the context of brick and mortar businesses, most of the businesses out there, that's actually really, really good. So I thought that was a really interesting point that was made from this Jungle Scout survey. Now, the next question, again, this is a biggie, is to do with how much have Amazon sellers made in profit terms in the entire time that they have been selling. So let's have a look at the results now. So here are the results to the question, how much profit have you made in the entire time that you've been selling? And one of the most important points to kind of take home from this chart here is only 6% of respondents were not yet profitable. So 94% of people that answered in this survey had made a profit, which is great. And that is really encouraging. So what else can we see from this chart? Well, we can see that 1 in 5 sellers, 20%, have seen lifetime profits of more than $100,000, which is really good considering the Amazon FBA is very much a passive business model and a lot of people do it as a side hustle. Now, in addition to that, you can also see that 6% of sellers have become millionaires from their Amazon FBA businesses alone. And that is something that I'm aiming for, and you guys certainly should be aiming for as well. We want to get in that 6%. So I thought this was a really good chart because it basically shows that there is plenty of opportunity left when it comes to making a profit by selling on Amazon. The next part of the survey that I thought was really interesting was to do with time spent working on the Amazon business itself. And you can see here are the results. Again, really interesting. 39% of respondents spent fewer than 10 hours a week on their Amazon businesses. And I definitely sit within that bucket. 17% of people spent fewer than 4 hours. I think I'm probably just about there, 4 or 5 hours. But even so, that is amazing, especially when you think about the previous question that said, how much money have you made in total? So if you think about all that money that people were making in a lifetime and then put it in the context of how much time they were spending on their Amazon businesses, you can see this is a humongous opportunity. The next set of questions asked are to do with money. So how much money did you invest in your Amazon business and how long did it take you to get a return on that investment? So here is the result to the question, how much money did you invest or start with for your Amazon business? And the results here again were really interesting. You can see 18% of people started with less than $500. I would guess based on that they're not doing private label. They're probably doing wholesale or retail arbitrage or something, but that's interesting nonetheless. Just as an aside, if you guys are interested in private labeling, I typically would recommend starting with $1,500 to $2,000 if you want to be able to order a good amount of units and be able to do private labeling to the full extent. So what else is this chart telling us? Well, it's telling us that the majority of sellers, so 58% in total, spent less than $5,000 in total to start their business. So generally, it's saying if you've got $5,000, then you're going to be in a good position. And further to what I just said, I would completely agree with that. Then in terms of the amount of time that it took to get a return on that investment or to make a profit, amazingly, 20% of people, so 1 in 5, made a profit in less than 3 months, which is really good going. Then next, we've got 17% of people did it in 3 to 6 months and 23% did it in 6 months to a year. Now, myself, I did it in 3 to 6 months, so I sit in that 17% category. But I'd say generally, if you're looking to sell with Amazon FBA, if you're looking to do private label, you should definitely be expecting to make a profit within the first 6 months of selling. So that was, again, another really interesting response. The final question that I wanted to run through with you guys is to do with factors for success. So Jungle Scout said to everybody in the survey, why do you think you have been successful? And the results are, again, fairly interesting, but not really that surprising. The number one reason that people thought they'd been so successful was because they had a massive motivation to make money, which definitely resonates with me, and I'm sure it does with you guys too. Then we had having time to commit to the business. So obviously you do need some time. My recommendation is to spend at least 1 hour per day. But having said that, the previous question that we saw that most people, well, 17% of people spent less than 4 hours per week. So who knows on that one. But I would say generally in the early days, you want to be spending at least 1 hour per day on your Amazon businesses. And then in third place was having exceptional drive and ambition. And again, that completely resonates with me. As soon as I discovered Amazon FBA, I became very passionate about the topic and very determined to succeed. I was not giving up. I was not going to let anybody say no to me. So, of course, I think my drive and ambition played a massive part. So if you guys are looking at that list there and you're thinking, yep, that resonates with me, then you have more than likely got it in you to become a great success as a seller with Amazon. So that was just a small sample of some of the questions asked in the Jungle Scout survey. I basically handpicked out all the most interesting questions for you guys, so you didn't have to sift through this massive document. But if you do want to see the full survey, I'll put a link for it in the description box below. And guys, if you've got any questions, comments, or whatever about that survey, let me know in the comments box. I'd love to know maybe what your own personal results are compared to the respondents in this survey here. So that is it for this week, guys. If you have enjoyed it, please remember to like the video. And if you're not already subscribed, please remember to subscribe. And of course, I will see you next time for another Amazon FBA video. Have a good week.